Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
All right, welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And today is one of those special days as you got three generations of brothers up in full effect with me joining, talking about Own Your Story. It's a project here happening in Detroit that I'm affiliated with, and also one of the big strong homies of Chris Rutherford and many others. But without any further ado, please introduce yourselves.
Yes. So, what up, everybody? Or what up, though? Right?
Yes, sir.
I ain't from the city, but I'm learning the language and feeling like it's a second home. My name is Jason Rivers. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But Detroit is becoming my second home. Definitely excited to be in this journey of the work that I believe in wholeheartedly and getting to know the greatness of the city, all the dope people doing dope things. So I'm just elated to the fact that we're here doing this work and, building with the brothers and sisters of the city. So, yeah, that's me.
Okay. Respect.
All right. I'm Alexander. I'm a sophomore. I go to King, and it's a good experience, especially me starting off young and everybody saying they wish they had this experience when they was my age. It's something good to start off with. Helps me with my future. Helps me build.
All right.
I'm Scrill. I'm a community activist and also vice president over at a community organization, national organization, New Era Detroit, and a part of the steering committee of Own Your Own Story. And we just excited to get this information out to the community and be able to project that imagery from the community, from people that's rooted in the community. Like you said, it's different generations that's sitting at this table right now, and being able to collect and collab that story and project it out.
Yes. So with that being said, Detroit is Different interviews always start with what led your family to be here. And I'm guessing, Alex, you may not even ask these questions. So let's see how far back you can go. Who was the first generation of people from your people to make their way to Detroit? Do you even know?
I don't. I know on my mom's, with my granddad's side, on my mom's side, some of them were Native American.
Okay.
So, it goes way back.
What area? Here in Michigan?
Yeah.
Okay. What tribe? Okay, so that means that next time I get you back, you're going to be crisp.
I don't even know.
Like, I've asked people a lot of these questions because that's how it usually starts. Scrill, what about your people? What led your people to the D?
So, as relationships emerge, you got your mom's side and you got your dad's side.
Yeah.
My mom's side originated from the South. And coming over, her grandfather is Irish and Indian, so I got a lot of Indian. For far as my grandmother's side of her grandmother, my great grandmother is Blackfoot Indian. So mixing with the Blackfoot Indian and the Irish on my great grandfather's side, that's that legacy that they passed down.
Okay.
On my father's side, it's really no Indian, Native American history that's generated, passed through there. But a lot of my family originated from Sparta, Tennessee.
Okay, Sparta, Tennessee. I never even heard of. Where is it at?
That's a little bit down past Nashville.
Okay, you ever been down there?
I went there to family reunion when I was younger. Yeah. So
okay.
We used to drive down there to Sparta. I actually just had a great aunt that I want to say they just said that she passed away like last year. That just passed away, and she was the last living sister of my great grandmother.
Okay, and then I'm going to get to some questions with you, Jason, that are specific to why Own Your Story is here in Detroit, but I got to jump off Detroit is Different how I usually started off. Now, the next question for you, Alex, would be neighborhood. What neighborhoods are your people, have they traveled throughout the city of Detroit?
Usually my family, like my grandma and my grandpa, they split up when I was younger. So, my family, they've been everywhere around Detroit.
Okay. What do you consider like growing up? What neighborhoods do you remember most?
When I was little, I used to live in Southgate,
Okay.
so that's not like really in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
But now I've been staying around like 7 Mile. that
Seven and
area.
what? 7 and what? Because you know
7
7 milers.
Yeah,
will be like,
that's a
all
long
It could be
road.
like 7 in Hayes. It could be 7 in
Uh,
Evergreen, and you know
You got-
7 in Southfield.
7 and Outer Drive.
Okay.
Yeah, around Vassar.
Okay. So what do you get in that community? Like what's the feel like for you? Because a lot of people would say you still coming up, being in the 10th, and
Yeah.
that was a cool age. I know when I was in the 10th grade, I did not have the focus of you, my brother.
It's a pretty chill vibes. Every neighborhood that I've lived in, with me traveling a lot, every neighborhood that I've lived in is mostly like elder people. So I'm always trying to help them out, like anything that they need.
Okay.
I help them out. They help me out.
All right, and I'm posing the same question to you. Your people, where are most of your people from when it comes to the Detroit journey?
So actually, I'm from Inkster.
Okay.
I left Inkster when I was 18 and moved to Detroit on my own. Like I just used to hang out in the city, but through that journey, it was a lot of people from Detroit moving to Inkster.
Yes.
So I had my neighbor was across the street. He was from the east side. So Gratiot and Hamburg is like my stumping ground when I
Wow.
first transitioned to Detroit. And
Wow.
it seemed like, whoa, this Inkster on steroids.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as people always say, like when you interview people, you talking and stuff. I had a Pizza Hut delivery job in Dearborn Heights, but it was right on that cusp of Inkster.
Yeah.
So any delivery to Inkster, you know they send a black guy.
Yeah, most definitely.
And Inkster definitely has its own like culture to it and feel like that whole downriver. I was just interviewing somebody about the black culture of Southwest Detroit, and it's its own feel, and that's unique. So you can even speak to Inkster. What was it like growing up for you and your people?
Man, out there, it was a village. Like, you know, I was my parents had me when they was young. They was 14 and 15. So
Wow.
I grew up with my parents. You know, I was raised by my grandparents also. So it was a real community. Like I couldn't go around the corner without getting a phone call like your baby around the corner. And when I get home, they trying to catch you in the lie. You know what
Ain't
I'm
that
saying? Like,
something?
where was you at?
So skipping
I was
school
such and
was
such-
out.
Skipping school was really out. You know, in my household. But you know, it was a lot of times that I got away with doing it. But it was really a community feel. You know, growing up. It's different now. But growing up, it really was like, okay, this my neighbor. Everybody was like, don't mess with the Joneses. Them little girls, you know, don't mess with them. They real good girls, you know what I'm saying? Or don't mess with them guys, the bakers, you know what I'm saying? Those some good guys over there. So every family knew each other.
All right, and then when we think of that downriver culture of blackness too, that still exists, is some long-standing resources in those communities that have been there for a while that just almost like as close as it is to Detroit, it's like, you know, if it's there, like the skating rinks,
So our skating rink, it was one of like the first to open up, and they're actually just now trying to get it revamped. It was closed for a long time. We didn't have any skating rink at all through my childhood. It was called the Safari. And my childhood, I never been in the Safari, but my parents, that was their hangout. They used to say that was the first time Missy Elliott, they always talk about Missy did a concert at the skating ring. And everybody from Detroit came down, and it was just a place for everybody. It was a hub to meet, you know what I'm saying? So they used to do real concerts at the skating ring, you know what I'm saying? So now that culture, like I said, that culture is coming back to the community. So, you know, like the skating ring, you know, the downriver, we have over there, you said the Southwest area, they got the Rollercade, which was the first black-owned skating ring in the country.
Yes.
And it's still standing. We do a lot of events there also. And it's just like, it's a lot of greatness within inside these little hubs that's surrounding a bigger city with economic thriving. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, to answer your question about that, the greatness was smaller, but it was a big scale of thinking inside these smaller cities.
And even connected to that, because like I hub a lot of that together, like Southwest Detroit, River Rouge, Inkster. because almost when I think of those communities, those were some of the last communities a lot of folks that did make the transition from the South North moved to, and houses were available. So some of it, as people definitely talk about, like the cancer, the pollution, the asthma, that's one tragic side of the story. But also another side of that story was, like you said, like a community that just existed in some of the last working black folk connected directly to a factory in Detroit. So like my reality of 1980s being over here in this neighborhood versus some of the people I knew, some of the things that were happening here in the 80s didn't really kind of impact there maybe to like the 2000s.
Yeah. It took a minute for a lot of stuff to transition. You know what I'm saying? A lot of stuff transitioned differently, I think, because the cultural aspect is different. Because in certain areas where the migration was, so Inkster was a diverse community. You know, it wasn't just all black. It was a very diverse community. So it still had a certain essence and feel to it. So a lot of those traits that was already standing when they, you know, had the city built, you know what I'm saying, Inkster, well, it never really was a city. It was always a village and a town because of our population. So when that village and town was standing, you know, it was a different essence of what their experiences was, right? So when our people, our families migrated to those areas, we was able to bring all our cultures, but even expand them because of, like you said, the factories and different things like that, right? But in a bigger city where a lot of our people are not, and we heavily populated it, you know what I'm saying, it's more of a culture takeover. Yeah. Rather than these smaller cities, it's not much of a heavily culture takeover because it's only so much space of occupancy that we reside in.
Yeah, definitely.
So
definitely.
It's going to take a minute for it to make a ripple effect.
Yeah. So with that brings me right over to Jason.
Yes, sir.
Why did this campaign select Detroit as a city to be here?
Yeah. You know, so the campaign, we picked 3 flagship cities. We piloted in Pittsburgh, and we started in Detroit intentionally because Detroit is a city, number one, predominantly black city, and number two, a city that is redefining itself and looking to redefine itself. And there's an influx of the external that's emerging on the city that's looking to create a new narrative for themselves, which is attempting to not to honor and not to respect, you know, what people have sacrificed to make this place for so long. So the mission of Own Your Story on a national level and local level is to ensure that we partner and move side by side, shoulder width community to tell our stories our own way, minus the political agenda, minus the agenda of individuals that don't oftentimes have our best interests, but are in positions to make decisions on behalf of the people, whether we're talking about school systems, whether we're talking about businesses, whether we're talking about politicians. Own Your Story desires to talk to and touch the spirit of the people, and for people to be able to speak the unapologetic truth on what they value, what matters most, what concerns them, and most importantly, what do we dream to be? You know what I'm saying?
So always when I ask people from different cities, when you were a kid, what did you hear about Detroit coming up?
Man, it's deep because, you know, what I heard about Detroit, so that it could be, you know, that it was a rough place. You know what I mean? That people ain't play up here. That it was rich with folks that migrated from the South. So I learned a little bit of that history, not as much as I should have known. You know, of course, I learned that Detroit was home of the automobile industry, and you would hear those narratives, that it was a black city. But then a lot of it was around these negative narratives, like it's a dangerous place. You know what I mean? It's a place where folks are struggling. And it was, what I heard is the polar opposite of what I found. And I was just telling my sister, you know, it's deep that I find myself, the longer I'm here, the more at peace that I feel, and it rivals the peace that I feel in the place that I was raised in years for, and so it's the opposite of what the narrative that people would push about this place.
Well, as you talk about that, Pittsburgh,
Mm-hmm.
and your story,
Yes, sir.
what was on your story there in Pittsburgh? And before we get to that, I just got to shout him out as he's my big homie. Like when we first originally met, John Bettis,
Mm-hmm.
Jerome's brother,
Mm-hmm.
originally rapper from Gang Move. Man, John. back when Jerome used to throw this big party every year. I was a kid, but it, like trying to sneak in or whatever, like this big party and bring Hollywood celebrities and everything.
Yep.
And being like basically not far from this neighborhood, McKenzie, West Side, like that area. The Bettis family itself, like, they were entrenched in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So when you said you connected with him and the business that he's doing, handling a lot of things, not just in restaurants, but in property and keeping things moving and using hip hop as one of those platforms to apply in the business. Mm-hmm. Shout out John, and I'm gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
We gonna cross paths and get him back on Detroit is different, but talk a little bit about like not just him, but some of the people that you met from Detroit that went there, and like. What did you notice in their character?
Man, it's deep that you say that. So first, shout out to the Bettises, right? Of course, Jerome. He's a legend. He can do no wrong in my city, just from what he's put on in regards to athletics.
My favorite team was trying to cut him at one point in time, but I feel that.
Hey, well, look, we geek to have him. To have him. And his brother, coming along with him, like they've done so much. And then they got a cousin there, Chuck Sanders. They got a lot of businesses. As a matter of fact, they just opened up a new cigar shop. And so, they got so many businesses in the city. And so watching how they navigate and move. And another one of my close friends, shout out to Detroit, Brandon Ballard, somebody that I've worked with for years. And what I've noticed is, and because Pittsburgh is a city that's the black-white binary is strong, right? Mm-hmm. So the racial divide is really strong and been a real thing there. And so like 60% I would say white city, 40% black city, and dealing with people that have grown up in a space where they've seen people that look like them in all spaces of leadership, of business ownership, of how like. Knowing and seeing yourself reflected back at you in positions of like power and organization. So how they move is different. Like where, people in my city, like we still ain't had a black mayor. You know what I'm saying? Like not too long ago, we didn't have a black superintendent. Like, we're geeked when we see, we never had a black chief of police. The majority of the teachers in our city don't look like the population we serve. So, like when we see, like when a business pop up and it's people that look like us, like we're geeked, and it's unfortunate that it's more like the unicorn versus the norm. And so as I would engage with people that was from Detroit that was in the city, and it was just kind of like they would describe their upbringing and what Detroit was like. It was a normal thing to see, things that I would get extra excited about. So and a confidence that they could move with, right? And another thing that I've noticed is that if this pride in, like, if I'm still here, that means that I survived a whole lot of BS. And, so there's a strength and character and confidence, and some people could say borderline cockiness, like, but there's a definite swag that is very unique to the space around, like, I am who I am, and I ain't sugarcoating who I am, and you want to accept it. If not, I'm good. Like, and that's a little different than what I've always seen in my city. There's pockets of my city that definitely has that same vibe, but overall, what has been able to control what happens in my city, it's not the collective. But in the community, it's more like what Detroit is. It's not as much as, as there as it is here.
So in piloting the program in Pittsburgh, what did you see? And how receptive was the black community there? Man,
extremely, because, just as we're doing here, we made sure that that the work sat with people that are movers and shakers and influencers. So, sometimes those people may have a title with them, and sometimes they got a title in community. And so, like, it's not, sometimes it's the folk that you would say, like, man, you got him around, he kind of controversial, or, he rough around the edges, or she does things differently. But the people were so receptive because we respected who they were. And it's not about a title, you know what I mean? And what we begin to formulate in our city was like, what does it mean for us to tell our stories our way? There was some years ago, the Heinz Foundation, which is like a major philanthropy organization in the city, they did a research thing looking at how black men are perceived in the media in our city. And the two primary ways that black men are perceived, it's either, an athlete, like a story about an athlete, or a story about some criminal behavior.
So if it's Michael Vick, it's like
right. And
all over the news.
Hey, when he came, they lost their mind. Like this holier than thou city, like it was crazy that Michael Vick, even years later, and so it was dope when we got a black head coach and Mike Tomlin, and he began to move in a way that was unapologetic.
From the same neighborhood as Mike Vick. And I'm saying that because it's a great 30 for 30 documentary right now. I don't know if everybody watches ESPN or checks for it about Michael Vick. Yep. And if you grew up around my time and just identifying the athlete he was and his story and how it relates in culture. Yep. So as you speak to that identity of the black male being an athlete or the black male being a criminal, it's still sort of intertwined. I mean, even in rest in peace, the passing of Kobe Bryant, and on innocence claims,
right?
One of the things that's that runs almost as concurrent of the story of the tragedy of him losing his life and his daughter's life is the trial he faced in Denver, or well, the trial and the charges he faced in Denver, I should say.
Yeah, and so that's a narrative that America's infatuated with. Yeah, and that's a story that they love to tell about us, which is is more like them than us anyway. But what I will say is that what was absent from the stories in my city were quality of life stories about how black community operates. Who are the fathers, right? What are the fathers doing with their children? What are the mothers doing? What does community look like? In a way that the only way you would really see that would be, the Courier. Shout out to the Courier, one of the longest standing black papers in the country. But you would have to go to something like that. You wouldn't see it in these other spaces. And so Own Your Story became this platform where we could tell our stories about all of who we were, right? And in a way that made most sense and was most relevant to us. And so Own Your Story is the national part of the campaign. But what we like to drill down is there a theme tied to every city. So in Pittsburgh, our theme was, Black is Pittsburgh. And the reason why we did that, because there was two things that were impacting the way black community was functioning in the city. And there was this idea that the only way that I can find happiness is in success is I have to leave Pittsburgh. Like, I got to go to Atlanta. I got to go to Charlotte. I got to go to Carolina. I got to go to Columbus, Ohio. But wherever, like, Pittsburgh can't be a place that I can go get a degree and come back to, start a business and family and be good at. Like, I got to leave. I got to bounce. And that was really being pushed down a lot of people's throats. And I had a lot of friends that left the city, and so white Pittsburgh was comfortable with us believing that, because then you're not threatening them for jobs and economic opportunity, all those sorts of things. So the stance was a very strong stance. Like, Pittsburgh is not just a dope place for white people. There's dope things that black people's doing in this city, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to celebrate it. We're going to be it. And so we put together a series of commercials that promoted that from each cultural, like from the lens of somebody that's a little older, than the younger voice. And it was from the male voice, the female voice. It was really, really powerful. And so we piloted it there. It took off, and we were able, to get some momentum going and look at, how can we bolster this project, this campaign, because it's really about mindset, and how do we take a collective mindset? How do we protect our communities? How do we protect our assets? And how do we tell our stories? And so when the opportunity presented itself and New Orleans was selected as a city, Newark, New Jersey, and Detroit. We jumped all the way in, and we about halfway through. We've been doing a lot of in the pre-launch, mobilizing our steering committee, finding out who are the influencers in Detroit, who can move work quick. And we got a dope group of, shout out to the steering committee here, because, the one thing that we believe in the village concept, and there's folks that, you could say, hey, I need a venue, just like yourself. Like, we needed a venue, and you had multiple places that we could go to. Like Scrill, all I got to do is just hit the brother up, like, man, this is a concern, and, next thing I know, he didn't got it all the way figured out. Or, Jason, you should meet this person, or here's who we should connect with, and just so strategic. And so loving and so embracing. Like, it's been overwhelming. So then, shout out to my brother Fame over at 313 doing great work. Yeah. Another one that's on the steering committee, man. So the steering committee is just full of a lot of dope people that are protective of Detroit and care about what's going on in Detroit. So, and we just we went from steering committee. We just launched with our fellows. We just starting the fellowship now, and so we in pre-launch mode, and pretty soon, and there's still an opportunity for a couple fellows. So if you know some strong influencers between the ages 16, 26, and they got a skill set, we looking to do community organizing, data collection, and marketing. So people that's interested in that type of stuff, man, and building a campaign and using positive propaganda to tell our stories our way. Like, there's an opening over here. We want to build with community. We want to represent community the right way. We want to honor who community's been. And lastly, whatever the work that we do, it always should benefit community. So we wanted to live here long after this campaign is over. And so we're excited about that. And then Detroit, being the first of the 3 flagship cities, is going to be able to usher in New Orleans and Newark as well. So we building a national movement around, like, what we want for our people.
All right. So that just brings me over to Scrill, steering committee. What led to you being a part of this and accepting the role in this mission?
Oh, man. So I actually bumped into Jason during one of our organization's initiatives called Buy Black Tour, where we patronize black-owned businesses once a month. So we choose a black-owned business to patronize to collect and make sure that we spend our money the correct way within inside of our communities with our people, because we got a $1.3 trillion spending power, right? So within inside New Era Detroit, what we do is we're a national organization that creates community initiatives that's self-sustaining, meaning self-sustaining means that we just need to get active in our community. That's it. So Jason actually had came out to one of our Buy Black tours at La Culture, which is one of the newest black-owned businesses within inside the city. He was just like, hey, I respect everything y'all been doing in the community. I'm Jason. I'm with Own Your Story. I want you to just check this out. I've been looking into y'all organization. I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? So I actually looked at it and was like, okay, we start building. I'm like, dang, he doing something in the community that's positive, that's trying to influence and include people within inside the community to tell their story. A lot of people, we get that information, a lot of individuals that get information and try to just use that to better themselves and not the whole perspective of the individuals that's within inside the community. So it was just natural I went back to the board. I'm a board member of our organization. I was like, hey, y'all remember Jason from Own Y'all Story? They're like, yeah. I'm like, hey, he got a national movement that he's piloting here in Detroit called Own Your Story. They want us to be a part of the steering committee. They was like, all right, Scrill, handle that.
And then also you've supported by bringing in some fellows too. You like representing, connecting with many of the fellows and helping, making sure that some people that have that voice and that platform between that 16 and 26 age range can be a part of this. What was it that led you to bring in some of those people you knew?
So, it's given, we understand that, like, in life, we got to have experience. Experience lead us to a abundance of whatever. A thought, it can change the demographics. It can change your trajectory of life just from having an experience, right? Mm-hmm. So with all the things that we do as an organization, it was only right that we give the experience to the youth, to the next generation that's coming up, because that's who's gonna be able to fight for us when we get older. And we always have that story where the elders don't support the younger generation. And in some eyes, I might not be old, but I'm an elder to a younger generation, right?
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. But
Yeah,
but so what we did was we went inside of our mentoring programs. It's called Elite Young Kings and Elite Young Queens, and we identified individuals within inside those programs that we see was excelling and just needed the opportunity to voice what they are going through and own up to their story, and to be able to be into a space where they can network. Because I can't control, but I can put you. I can't make you drink the water, but I can lead you to the water.
So create an opportunity for these young people that are already receptive to the messaging of Black empowerment.
Exactly, and that's beyond. That's even that's even beyond beyond the aspects of what our organization actually have too. Okay, so like even though our organization is on the steering committee, right? But Own Your Story is another entity. So we're still identifying with other organizations and other things that's on the same mission and saying, here, this person needs assistance too. So it's collaboration and building that real community sound where we're working together. You know what I'm saying? As a community, we're identifying with other organizations, other people that's identifying in the same aspect, so we can lead our village into the correct way. You know what I'm saying? Because we might not be at that same place where they need assistance, but if we have a counterpart that's in that space, we can lead them right there and say, get this assistance from right here.
Next thing goes to the fellow Alex. What led you to say, after Scrill hit you to the game, be like, all right, I'm down?
So it kind of started like I was in the hallway, and then he came up to me and he was like, hey, come check this out. And I'm like, I don't really know, I gotta get to class. So I just went in there and I heard them talking about like they can help me out with like my future and stuff. And so I was like, all right, I see what it is. So the next time I met him, he was like, I'm Scrill, there's this thing called New Era Detroit. And I looked into it and I'm like, oh, they legit. I'm thinking it's just somebody coming into the school, talking for a day, and then leaving. And, he was telling me how, like, he can help me with, like, culinary arts and all of that. It's this really dope thing, helping me shape my future.
All right, so as you talk about coming into school and being in this position, and you spoke on it, you're one of the youngest people in this program. What's school like? What's your vision? And then also, what opportunities do you feel like school sets you up with to do something like tell your story?
So, tell your story. It's like it's gonna help me. I see it now. Like being in school, they give you Voltec, so like you can do culinary arts, but it's just you do what they tell you to do for the 4 hours. Then you go back to school, you learn, you go home, and you repeat it every day. Where instead of you can be with like Own Your Story in New Era Detroit, where you tell them exactly what you want to do, and they'll give you those resources and those providers to help you out and do it.
So what are some of the things, what is the vision? What are some of the things you want to do?
It's a lot.
Oh, man, we got time, man. And the reason I'm telling you this is, in the world of Own Your Story, this is a platform too. Sometimes I'm surprised some of the networks that people connected to Detroit is different and pulled from Detroit is different. And it's like, damn, I'm the voice of Detroit is different, and I haven't gotten that opportunity. So definitely as a young person, speak up. What are you looking for?
So I like photography. Like I do that on the side. Like just when I see an opportunity to take a picture, instantly take my phone out. I do that. Culinary arts is a passion that I've been having for a long time. I even got a couple college credits like now going up to Henry Ford over the summer and taking those classes. I like chemistry, and I also want to be a biochemical engineer.
Okay,
really
so
dope.
let's venture back into photography, and then also I'm community college grad. I'm from Henry Ford, so I represent. I remember being in class like you grown, and then it's like a kid in 11th grade next to you. You like, damn, this is crazy. So speaking on photography, what's your vision for photography? What are you looking to do? You just what's your interest in it?
So I've been doing like I take pictures like just whenever.
So is it more like you want to capture people? Do you want to capture events? Do you want to capture still shots of art? Like, what do you see your journey as a photographer being?
Probably like taking pictures of people, like catering for them and stuff. That's something I like doing. I like taking like still shots as well.
Okay.
Like I when I take pictures, it's not so much as like, oh, it's a whole bunch of stuff there like people would take pictures of. I take pictures of things that people wouldn't see a good image in. Like when we were just outside, like that snow falling on that tree, taking that picture is something that somebody would just walk right past.
Okay, naturally that comes to like, do you put this up on Instagram or where's your work?
I was thinking about putting all of that on like an Instagram page. Usually I just keep it to myself and show it to friends.
Okay, I want to urge you to let your art be seen. That's step one. That's going to create more opportunities naturally. I don't know if you've followed this account. Guy goes a lot of places. But Camera Jesus, he's from Detroit. But if you on Instagram, look at Camera Jesus's account. But it's many other photographers. And it's a deep history with photography here, as photography tells a lot of stories. I think of great photographers like Del Rich, and then these moments in history that are captured through photography that, you know, last a lifetime. Some of Milton Henry's images of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Paul Robeson are, you know, like set up in archives. And Detroit does have a rich history of some strong black photographers, men and women that have, you know, changed the way that we see black America. So I strongly urge of you to get involved in that. What do you said your phone now.
Yeah.
Have you researched into like some cameras that you would like to see? Are you interested in being like an apprentice? What are you looking for?
I've been looking into like a couple Canon cameras, but like Polaroids, I've been looking into those. I had one a while back. I started taking pictures on those, like just capturing those moments, like a whole bunch of small Polaroids and like different colors, and then putting it into one big picture.
Okay. All right. So like different forms of like artistry within it.
Yeah.
So that all sounds very interesting. And how do you see the still shot? How do you see a photo telling a story relating back to this work?
So like a photo telling a story, I see it like somebody could just walk past a tree and just be like, oh, it's a tree, when that tree could have been that same tree that helped build that house that you're living in now, you know? Like having that apple tree, like an apple tree. You got that apple tree. You get the apple, you eat it, you throw away the seed, and that same seed can spread through everywhere, spreading a whole bunch of different places, helping different people.
Okay. All right. I would say, man.
Philosopher
you
too.
have
You
some-
better teach. You said, man.
Yeah, I would urge, definitely when I swing back, I think photography tells a lot of stories. And when you speak of trees, especially when it comes to our journey here, like you think of the capturing of so much of the atrocities of the lynchings that took place. A lot of that was photography that changed the way that led to the murders of many of our people not being murdered. So, and sometimes it was just pictures of the trees themselves. And many of those trees still exist in certain places if you're in Virginia, if you're in South Carolina, North Carolina, you know, and then depending upon the time, probably here in Michigan too, you know. So, you know, photography plays a huge role. As you were at the Charles Wright Museum today, and seeing some of those images, what images stood out along the journey there today for you?
To be honest, all of them. But it was the one, it was like right towards the end. It was a couple. It was the one with all of these little pictures building up to become the image of a skyline for Detroit. That was like the main one that stood out, about all of these little moments and all of these smaller things leading up to that big one and that bigger image.
Okay, definitely. So this bounces me back to the idea with Scrill, like as you hear this from Alex, talking about possibly telling the story through photography. It like, where do you see the creativity of some of the people in this program taking things?
Oh man, the sky is not the limit; it's just a view. Is what I always quote. and the possibilities are endless because of minds like in spirits and souls like Alex that's inside the fellowship. And from that, that's a, like you state, photography is a very strong, a still image to anybody can resonate because of their experience, right?
Yeah.
So like he made the statement of the tree and then the apple and then eating the apple to the seed to be planted again. You know, that was philosophy. You know what I'm saying? That, you know, so I actually see that expanding even more because it'll reach another demographic that maybe I don't have a philosophy mindset of a photographer.
Yeah.
Right. So each of these fellows have a different type of philosophy to reach a different type of individual. Where that you asked him a prevalent question of what type of imagery would you like to take pictures of, which made him think like, how many is he? And you start naming. He was like, okay, well, it gave because y'all was able to relate on something that y'all both enjoy. As me, I'm not a photographer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So rounding it back, that fellowship with different criteria that they enjoy would bring a more broader perspective of what On Your Story is or how that story is told.
Same question for you, Jason, and I'm pretty sure you're probably gonna be like, I concur to the deacon to my left. But you know, where do you see the creativity like photography playing a role in On Your Story?
Yeah, because you know, the dope thing about our stories is they're creative. You know, they're innovative. They're our stories, so it's an expression. So whatever way your mind can conjure up, there's a platform, and if it doesn't exist yet, then let's create one. And so, you know, as Scrill spoke to, like, what does it mean to tap into? One thing that we're very intentional about, and we talked about today and on Wednesday with our fellows, is that, you know, what does it mean to be in tune with your story? What does it mean to, and we creating a movement of where vulnerability can be the new cool thing. You know what I mean? And I don't have to compromise my strength, my toughness, and I can still speak my truth. And so when we talk about telling our stories, it means being authentic to who we are. And sometimes in the process of like our stories being diluted, we've accepted that in order to live life in a certain way, I got to live like other people, which isn't my story. You know, I'm trying to fit into somebody else's character for me. And so what we're looking to do is, you know, based upon interest or giftedness. And we just talked about this with Alex on the way over. And he was talking about his love for you know, photos. And we like, well, bro, you're a photographer. Like, and he's like, no, because I ain't really. Like, no, yes, you are. Like, what does it mean to just sit back and embrace that? Like, because you literally hopped out the car and saw the snowflake hit the tree. I saw the same. I wasn't even paying attention to but he saw the beauty in it and he saw the story in it. And it was profound to me to watch him enjoy that moment. And that's blackness too. Like, so many people for so long have been defining what we are down to who and what is black, right? Versus our story is based upon my talents, my gifts, and what the ancestors sacrificed, my intelligence. How do I creatively express that to the world? So for him, it may be photography or philosophy. For somebody else, it might be like, I see the world through numbers. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could tell my story through a math problem. I could tell my story through rapping. I could tell my story through a business. Like whatever you can't stop thinking about, like, what does it mean to dream again? And we was talking about that earlier too. Like, you know, because one of the smoke screens that, you know, I think the way the system in society is structured, like, so many people are just trying to survive. And when you're in that mode, it doesn't give you opportunity and platform to dream. Like, when you got the creatives that come in here and create content, like, they're dreaming, they're being who and what they are, and that's a beautiful thing. And so,
thank you.
Yeah. So we love what you're doing. Shout out to Detroit is different. It's a divine connection, and really is this energy that since we touched down in Detroit, like, and because we've been committed to a mission that's more than just like economic or self. I really feel how the ancestors are guiding us, how the energy is guiding us, how we connected, how with you, with Detroit is different, with Scrill and New Era. Like, it's just every moment is a very, like, one thing Scrill always talk about is like when he think about his day, if I'm gonna move how the energy of life tells me to move, and who I'm connected with, what I'm doing, it's going to make sense, and it's going to be interconnected to the other thing I just did, and it's going to also be connected to the thing I'm about to do. And I watch him live his life in a very intentional way, and that's owning your story, right? It's healing, you know what I mean? It's ambition, it's all those things, and I think that's a dope thing that to model the work that we do with everybody. What does it mean to be real intentional about who I choose to let in my life and who I choose to say got to exit my life? What projects I'm committed to and what ones I say, you know what, that's cool and everything, but it's not for me. And owning your story just means to sit in your truth and be able to tell your truth. So, like, it's just as much about Alex finding himself and his purpose as it is the collective mindset that we want to really dig into and have and embrace across Detroit. And then how do we movement build across the nation? Because what are the themes that bubble up when we start to really own who and what we are? And part of ownership is protection. What does it mean to really protect this thing? And what does it really mean to protect each other? And what does it mean to define by our own standards what it's going to be?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, that moves us towards the end. I usually ask like some classic 3 questions, but I'm going to change these questions up in reference to the content for today. And plus, Jason, it's like, these is like some Detroit-based questions.
God, hey, man.
But I'm going to ask them, I'm going to change it up. But and speaking on it, with it. So, and we'll go, I'll start right with you. In the world of storytelling, book, what's your favorite book?
Wow. Man, bro, you gonna start with books, man? I love books, man. If life could,
Give me a chance to think about it.
right.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, so I need to tell you about where my love for books started.
Okay.
All right, and it's not. So the first book that when I fell in love with literacy, it was based upon a time period in my life in the 90s when my city was like just infatuated with gang culture. Mm-hmm. And I was in a position where like I found myself feeling pressure to choose in early high school. Like, who am I going to click up with? Who am I going to be connected to? And it's like when like Bloods and Crips was moving beyond L.A. So we a little city over on the East Coast that's taking on a West Coast flavor as we trying to find our identity.
In the world of storytelling, peep Ice Cube's Death Certificate, album 2.
Come on.
Summer Vacation.
Come on. So long story short, man, like I absolutely hated reading. I hated reading. Like, I hated when my teacher tried to force me to read, when my parents would want me to sit down and read. And my sister loved to read, and I thought she was such a hater because she would pick up a book for no reason. And she knew that when she picked up a book, it meant that I had to pick up a book too. So I used to hate walking in the room and seeing her with a book. I used to throw her books out, do whatever I could, because I knew it was going to be that they're going to try and make me read.
This is that stuff that sisters grow up saying,
right. Like you did that on purpose, right? Okay.
Why she was hating on you when you were 16.
But long story short, man, when I found this book called Monster, about Monster Cody, and the power of the way that he told his story, right? And it's nothing that my mom would have probably wanted me reading at the time. It's nothing that the teachers would have approved of. But it was the first time that I couldn't put a book down. Wow. Like, I was reading it, falling asleep with it. I'm in math class, and they doing a problem. I'm reading a book. Like, I'm taking a book everywhere where I went. And before I knew it, I was at the end of the book. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, damn, like, I need like 4 more chapters. Like, why is this thing over? And in that moment, I realized that literacy and reading was a powerful tool. And something else that it taught me that I take to this day is that when you read, it connects you to other authors and to other books. In every book, the story continues through somebody else. So because his book ended, he had 3 more authors or other books that he wanted me to connect to. And that journey is a journey that I carry today. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I would say my love for learning, my love for reading started with something that everybody would have told me I shouldn't be reading. And it was everything that I needed to read. And it changed my world. And so from that, man, like, my house is full of books. You know, I love books about trauma, about equity, about education. Dr. Joy DeGrew's book around post-traumatic slave syndrome is one of my favorites. There's a book about epigenetics and my grandmother's hands, about how epigenetics, the trauma, can be passed on through DNA.
I got that book last year.
Word.
Due to the Source Booksellers.
Yeah.
Shout out to them.
them.
Detroit is different.
Hey.
Guest and
Allison.
staying around for 30 years.
Man, I love them. Hey,
but
we don't touch Detroit. Every time we come, we go to. I go spend time in that. Like, being around books is like therapeutic to me. So man, I love books. Okay. I love learning, and it all started with Monster Cody. Wow. And something that everybody said would have told me, because he was like, the stuff he was talking about was ruthless, but it was everything that I needed in that moment. It changed my life forever.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, Alex.
So really, I got two favorite kind of books because like they're two completely different genres.
Okay.
So like it's this one book called Legend. It's about a girl who's like it's like in the future, and it's about a girl and her brother has this plague, and the government is trying to like stop the plague from being spread, so they try to kill everyone who has it. But her mother's a scientist, and like she's found the cure, but they don't want her to get the cure. They're like, the government tries to take it to heal their own people. And so like she goes on this crazy journey to like protect her brother and make sure that he doesn't die. And it's a really dope book.
Okay.
And then the other one is Frederick Douglass, his autobiography. That book, I read it when I was like in the 5th, 6th grade. I've read the book a good 30 times already. Wow. When I first read it, I didn't put it down. Like, I'd be in, like, just like him, I'd be in school reading the book. We'd be at the dinner table. I'd have it in my lap looking at it. Mom be like, "What you looking at?" Nothing. I don't got nothing. Like, it's a good book about like his mindset and how he was never a slave. He was just, somebody under that impression, like, you capture me now, but you ain't captured my mind yet.
Yeah, many people will say it, and just being present to say enslaved versus we were slaves.
Yeah.
And then like it's power in words, as they say, because in some cultures, especially a lot of African cultures, you can say that the word itself conjures up spirits. So like the intentionality. So, a lot of this kind of, if Brothers from the Nation, etymology, like even the foundation of how words come together and why those words are placed in that. It's science, and I think that it's some merit in the truth of that. Scrill?
That's real.
Man, that's, this question is real deep because just the stigma and different things around our culture and our people about literacy, about reading,
Yeah.
And Jason said something that really touched because, like, growing up, I didn't want to read. I would look at I would look at the instructions and I see the picture and I build what's on the picture instead of reading the instructions, just off visual. But really, like, what got me to read was, I would say, I'm 31 now. This was like 24, 25. I was transitioning into my journey now. And my homeboy, I'm working. I'm a 9-to-5 person working all the time. And he was still going to school. He was going to Marygrove. And we was transitioning on our spiritual journeys. Like, this is how I can reflect it now. And he was at my house, staying at my house to go to school. And I picked up his philosophy book. And I looked at it, I'm like, philosophy, and I opened it up and my mind just unlocked. I don't know exactly, but it was from a Marygrove curriculum. So that's what unlocked my mind to reading again. And I just skimmed through it and I said, wait, the world is based off somebody's thought? Off these people's thoughts? That's what the world is created on? So it unlocked my mind, right? But that led me to going to speak with my family and talking to about different things. And, my grandfather just transitioned, but through that, my grandfather had gave me a book that actually changed my whole perspective and gave me a identity, because when you look at philosophy books, they don't look like you, right? The people that they have these thoughts from.
Well, the books we have access to now.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, from the curriculum of what the system puts out.
Yes,
right,
sir.
exactly.
Yes, sir.
But that was stolen knowledge that they
we definitely
know.
Oh, man.
But
yes.
my grandfather actually gave me a book from his transition and his journey. So it was like a gift of the generation passed down, right? And this book was Black Girl Lost. Donald Goines,
Highland Park's own.
Right? Right? So this is a book that my grandfather read while he was locked up. And going through his transition, and it helped him. And he gave me that book, and he shared that story with me. So I'm like, what? You was locked up? Like, I'm learning that as we go. So it was just a tale of a generation passing down. But he actually gave me his whole Donald Goines collection. So I have all the collection books, like first edition books. And I actually sat there, and that was the first time I read a book from the front to the back.
Come on.
And just to really see, I could see Donald Goines, but I can see the image and the story he was telling from him being in the streets, and him seeing his perspective and telling from third person stories and first person stories. I was able to really set myself into those situations, like, whoa, I'm living these actual situations. And
to that, Donald Goines opened up the minds of many people, like Black Gangster, Street Players, Black Girl Lost, and even his own story. Like, when we think of Donald Goines, a lot of credence is given to Iceberg Slim, especially since like the Dave Chappelle reference and how Jay-Z used to moniker it. And a lot of people, his book Pimp and many of his other novels, Tar Baby and everything else. But Donald Goines being so close right there in Highland Park and his struggles with heroin and other things.
And him getting pimped by for his books. You know what I'm saying? They was giving him pennies on the dollar.
Black artistry being not getting that is the term, being exploited by entertainment structures.
Man.
That story may be, I don't know if we have enough hours in the day to share those stories, but definitely when we think of the brilliance of the way he captured the narrative of the hood, and that kind of goes to the next level. I asked about books, hip hop, guilty pleasure, and this is the last question for real. Storytellers in rap and hip hop. Who do you like most? And we right here with you, Scrill. Who would you say?
Oh man. Honestly, I got a lot, man. But who really resonate with me
as a storyteller
is Nas, man. In my generation,
with the song Black Girl Lost,
man. Nas, like Nas is I can put that on and I can just travel in time in my mind and just see myself. I can see different individuals, you know what I'm saying? Like, just that era. Like, it's other eras, KRS, you know what I'm saying? KRS-One, like that's real big too. But like that I can relate in a genre in the era that I really grew up in. Is Nas.
So I'm gonna say, as much as I love hip hop, so favorite Nas storytelling rap is on his first album. It's One Love, and a lot of people relate to One Love in a different way. Just like him putting the pen to the paper to write his friend that's incarcerated, and just telling him like the stories of the dynamics of what's going on in the neighborhood. And then you think about, like, he wrote that when he was like 17. You know what I mean? It's like, man, you can listen to it to this day. Then you mentioned KRS-One, so I'm going to just throw Love's Gonna Get You is my favorite story from him. So
come on.
So Jason.
Hey, he took two of the best, man. So, just my all-time favorite, again, probably not when I fell in love with hip-hop, but when I fell in love with the whole album, and that was Pac, Tupacalypse Now.
Wow.
It changed my life, man. I remember when it came out, and just I was listening to it on my headset, the cassette, and I remember sitting down on a corner, and I just listened from the beginning of the tape to the end, and it was I can't even explain the power and the energy and of his words and just what he was talking about. He's one of my all-time. He is my all-time favorite. So Pac. That's my guy.
And two of his greatest stories are on there.
Yeah.
As great of a storyteller as he was.
Yeah.
When we think of shout out to Super MC, love Soup, another Highland Park legend. But he hit me to Soulja's story. So
That's
like
unreal.
Soulja's story on Tupacalypse Now, he's telling the story from the perspective of an older brother that's incarcerated. That then, like, when people talk about, like, man, hip-hop, there's no artistry to it. But the artistry is, like, an older brother that's incarcerated, that's talking to his younger brother about, like, what he's dealing with and how he's dealing with it. And then in the middle of it flips to the younger brother breaking into prison get his older brother out of jail.
Come on.
And, the one we relate to most is Brenda's Got a Baby. But Soulja's story is, like, talk about painting the picture. It's like you listen to it in a different voice and everything. It's like, man, this is like, the story is
That's
vivid.
my favorite song on there. And there's so many dope ones, like you said. Part-Time Mother, Violent. Like listening to Soulja's story and Violent back to back, like just the power of like, look, man, like we ain't putting up with your stuff no more. You know what I mean? Like, like if you come to us with the BS, like it's going to be a problem. And like you said, there's just so much power. Every song, man, just around imagining myself not having to accept the status quo. And like you said, he was a brilliant man. He was a storyteller. And I just, man, that album, it changed my life.
Yeah, my favorite Pac story is those are great, and he was a great storyteller. It definitely goes to like probably a lot of people's in Dear Mama, and I think that as it's conceptualized, it almost, I let people fly, but like people, I think can like people like have recharacterized what that story is, but the vulnerability and the exposing of the insecurity just shows how poetic he was throughout the song. Like this, to write a rap song like that, as like, even as when I was more active in writing in hip hop, like starting a song like that, it's like, man, those are some powerful words. When I was young, me and my mother had beef, 17 years, all kicked out on the street. It's like, to think of starting a song like that, it's like, damn, dude, that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm the engineer, it's like, I would almost get chills to like, damn, he's saying this? Same question to you.
Whoa.
And then represent for your crew and your set, because like as a young dude, I know sometimes like it's like ain't nobody trying to hear Roddy Ricch, but if that is your, what I'm saying, it's that's the cool thing I think about hip hop, and that's why I really connect with this Own Your Story, because at one point in time I think hip hop was a place that allowed for us to tell our story without so much of the corrosive concept of materialism and agendas, the agenda of artistry over capitalism. So who would you relate to as a...
So I'm gonna have to give it to my man's Lil TJ.
Okay.
He's only like 18 as well, but the things that he done been through, like life, like his mom kicked him out, like he done seen his friend get shot right in front of him, like, and all of those things, and then coming up just from rapping in his basement to performing for people that's older than him or the same age and getting sold out shows, and then coming up from basically having not too much and now him having everything he want plus some. I feel like that's a really dope story that you can tell, like just being that age.
And see, I'm unaware of his catalog. Like sometimes it takes the tragic events, like Triple Extension, for me to recognize, like, okay, like what was this, in learning more about his storytelling catalog and everything. But I'm gonna look for Lil TJ. What's your favorite? What should I be looking for when I look for the storytelling catalog of him?
For Lil TJ, I mean, like it's a lot of songs, cause like the main person that he talks about is his friend Smelly. That's the friend that died, and almost on every song, like it's only like 3 of them that you won't hear him saying his name. Like, I wish my man Smelly was here. I wish he was here with me. Like, they done been through so much. I feel like FN, that's a really good song.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I'll check for that. So with that, this was a great interview. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing where this project will go. I'm going to add in some more, and we'll be talking to more people a part of this project. As it expands, Detroit is different. It's definitely a home. Peace be to all you all.
Peace, bro. We appreciate you, man.
Yep.
Respect.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.